Hey, Keen here, design manager of Bourgeoisie Design, and I'm here with the whale design, specifically made by Jaden Roseberry.
Hi, I'm Jaden Roseberry, project manager of Bourgeoisie Design. And this is the original car that we started on.
Windshield.
Yes, you can see how the windshield deflects the wind, but there is this area here. I would like to point this out. It is an area that traps wind and causes unnecessary drag. But on my design, the zone is removed, having a more seamless transition into the rest of the car, adding a little bit up at the,
For a runway.
runway to launch the wind off at the end without causing unnecessary drag, adding necessary aesthetics to the windshield. So my biggest contribution was effectively doing my job of project manager, meaning I had to set deadlines, meet with the other project managers, and keep my entire group on schedule. Of course, this also meant managing the prints that the project lead had to design. One of my personal contributions was, of course, making the actual concepts design to put into the decision matrix of the whale design, which was the draft for our final print.
I think my biggest contribution as prototyping lead for Bourgeoisie Design was building our part in Inventor with some help from the other group members, working with other prototyping leads to get the prints to happen, and just generally analyzing the prototypes that we made, figuring out what the problems were, and working off of that.
So, I'm design manager, and my job as a contributor to the Bourgeoisie Design is that I need to create the criteria statements, which are an essential part in the design of the whale. So things such as like the way it looks, the way how it impacts the old windshield, like if it's like faster or like heavier, stuff like that. And also make sure that the whole team had generalization of like building the whale and like how it would be very like better than the old one.
I think my biggest contribution to the group was keeping team morale at a high and keeping conflicts at a low and keeping our group together and picking up a little bit of slack. I think that for our team to be functioning properly, we need to have really high motivation and really high team morale, which I think we did really, really well because everyone was constantly happy and we always had to jump on the due date instead of lagging behind, which is what would happen if we had conflicts, which we did not. And I think that when one of our group members left, there wasn't much slack to pick up, but in the case that he didn't do his work, I would have had to pick up slack. I didn't have to do that much because he was really, really responsible, but in that position, if it was someone else, I would have to pick up more slack.
During our process, we went through many different prototypes, the first of which was absolute crap. The pegs on our prototype were so thin that they didn't even print, so there's no way for it to connect. And even still, it's too long and doesn't follow the curvature of the hood. For our second prototype, we did get the pegs to print, but they were too close together and the windshield does not fit on top of the car. And because of this, it made it pretty hard to determine whether the windshield was too tall, too long, anything like that with those dimensions. With our third design, the only thing we changed was the distance between the pegs. We didn't want to risk messing up anything else. But this time, we found that our pegs were too far apart, so they did not fit in the car, and we still could not tell whether our length, height, dimensions like that were acceptable. For our fourth design, we finally got the pegs right. It does fit into the vehicle. However, our pegs are too long. As you can see, there is a very small gap between the car and the windshield. Additionally, we wanted to make the distance from the peg to the tail of the windshield a little bit shorter because, as you may see, it's scraping right up against the spoiler right here. So right here, we have our final piece. Pegs fit. It's pretty much level with the car. The only problem I can find is that our slope here, it causes there to be a little bit of a gap between the car and the windshield at the very front end. Obviously, this is something that we could have fixed if we had more time, but because this is the best prototype we've made yet, today is Friday, project is due Monday, we're kind of out of time here, so we're accepting this as our final piece.